of the High Court of Kenya, Dr. Isaac Hassan, a leadership and governance expert. Also, to join us virtually will be Honorable David Sankok, who is a member of Parliament, the East Africa Legislative Assembly, that is IALA. We'll be highlighting what has been transpiring as far as matters politics are concerned. President William Ruto, who was yesterday in Uasin Gishu County, accompanied by a section of ODM and UDA leaders, has actually urged leaders to preach unity. This is an effort, of course, to just ensure that the country is united amidst political tensions between him and his besieged deputy, that is the impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who was also yesterday in church. He has actually called on Kenyans to pray for President William Ruto. In fact, Gachagua, who is fighting his political survival in courts, has further highlighted what he believes are priority matters. That is, for the well-being of Kenyans, being the focus on over-taxation, the deteriorating economy, the failing health systems, among others. Remember, the impeached Deputy President's case is coming up tomorrow before a three-judge bench that actually refused to recuse themselves from hearing the petitions before them, challenging the oust of Rigathi Gachagua as Deputy President. And so that will also form a better part of conversation this morning. In fact, tomorrow by 10 a.m., the three-judge bench will be looking into the issue or the application of lifting conservatory orders that has been made by the respondents in what is seen as aiming or keen to swear in Kithure Kindiki as the Deputy President. He was nominated by President William Ruto. His name forwarded to Parliament. The National Assembly approved Kithure Kindiki as the Deputy President with 236 votes against 0. And it's still uncertain whether Kindiki remains as the interior boss. That is what we'll also be touching on. And whether his nomination violated the ruling party UDA's constitution. It talks about at least having a deputy president as a deputy party leader 3 months into the nomination. And in this case, Kithure Kindiki, who served as the interior boss, it's well known that that is the position he held until, or is still holding, when or until he was nominated by President William Ruto. We'll be asking the lawyer, that is Morara Moki, who's an advocate of the High Court, whether that already constitutes another legal barrier for Kindiki to take over office. This even as Kenyans came out in huge numbers on Friday to participate in the public participation on the bill that seeks to extend term limits from 5 years to 7 years, that was sponsored by the Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei. So the JLAC Committee of the Senate is set to table a report on the same before the House. That is those are conversations actually that we'll be having this morning. Once again, my guest in studio will be Arnold Malba, Head of Policy and Public Affairs at the ruling party UDA, Morara Omoki, an advocate of the High Court, Dr. Isaac Hassan, a leadership and governance expert, and as well Honorable David Sankok, who is the Member of Parliament, IALA. We begin with what is on our dailies this morning, and our very own People Daily, that is Kenya's #1 free newspaper, our own publication here at Media Max. Highlights of pray for Ruto, cries Rigiji, impeached Deputy President, accused President of overtaxing Kenyans, and presiding over a failed health system, even as Commander-in-Chief calls for national unity amidst a raging storm. That is on the cover page of the People Daily. Pray for Ruto, cries Rigiji, mind games, where the impeached Deputy President accused or accuses president of overtaxing Kenyans and presiding over a failed health system, even as Commander-in-Chief calls for national unity amidst a raging storm. This is on the People Daily. Remember, you can get an e-paper on epaper.peopledaily.digital. And there is an image there of the impeached deputy president and his spouse, Pastor Dorcas. They attended a church service in Kiambu yesterday. So the story in details is on page 4. Just to peruse what page 4 entails. On failed leadership hurting Kenyans, Gachagua says. Impeached deputy president, that is on page 4. Rigathi Gachagua has taken on the government, saying Kenya lacks direction and that citizens felt helpless due to failed leadership. Speaking yesterday, Gachagua said Kenyans had reached a point of losing hope, appealing to Kenyans to pray for President William Ruto so that he could get the wisdom to address the problems bedeviling the country. Kenyans are actually being overtaxed, according to Gachagua. He cited overtaxation and a failing health system as evidence of poor governance and urged Kenyans and the clergy to remember President William Ruto in prayers so that he could guide the country in the right direction. This was the second time that the impeached DP publicly attacked the government following his sensational claims when he left hospital last week that 2 assassination attempts had been made against his life. Immediately after the Senate voted to impeach Gachagua, Gachagua said his security guards at his office and private residence were recalled, a move that he said was meant to expose him. Remember, this as far as Gachagua being in charge yesterday is concerned. He urged the congregation to pray for his lawyers, that is led by Paul Muite, to push for justice in court, actually in impeachment-related cases. Gachagua is in court contesting his removal despite facing 3 setbacks with his petitions. His legal team is waging a battle over the impeachment and has vowed to go all the way to the Supreme Court to challenge his ouster. He also wants courts to stop President Ruto from nominating his successor, pending the determination of the case. The High Court is tomorrow scheduled to hear the state's challenge of conservatory orders that halted the swearing-in of Kithure Kindiki as deputy president. But Gachagua has suffered so far a setback after 3 High Court judges declined to recuse themselves from the impeachment case. A 3-judge bench consisting of Justices Eric Ogola, Anthony Mrima, and Freda Mugambi granted Gachagua's legal team an opportunity to file an amendment applications related to the initial petitions within 5 days. On conservatory orders, remember, this is what most Kenyans have been asking. Why has Kithure Kindiki not taken over office? Now, the judges had declined to set aside the conservatory orders that stopped the swearing-in of Kindiki. And on this one specifically, it's awaited to see whether they will be lifted or they will remain in force. There is the first conservatory order that was issued by the Milimani Law Courts, that is by Justice Chacha Mwita, that expired on 24th of this month, that is October. But there is an existing one, that is the Kerugoya court order, that also gave Gachagua a reprieve, not being removed from office until the matters are heard and determined. That one did not have a specific timeline, and that's why the state, all the respondents are challenging this particular matter. That, remember, once again, it will form a better part of a conversation this morning with my guests in studio, and I still invite you to join in this conversation Our social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Church, as well on SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. Back on the cover page of the People Daily, MPs put up fight for CDF. That's on page 8. Leaders claim that entrenchment of kit in the Constitution will not require a referendum. CDF, that is the Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, what others call it. So it is a kitty that is usually given to members of Parliament. So that is on page 8. MPs frown upon plebiscite over NGCDF statute, where a House committee now says that entrenching the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, the Senate Oversight Fund and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund into the Constitution will not require a referendum. In a report tabled in the National Assembly, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee chaired by Tharaka Member of Parliament, that is George Murugara, observed that the amendments do not relate to the matters outlined in the Article 255 of the Constitution that will require an initiative to be decided by Kenyans. And these are actually highlighting of a possibility of these funds remaining or being entrenched in the Constitution without really requiring a referendum. Now, there is a dissenting view. However, the report notes that Ruaraka Member of Parliament, that is Tom Kajwang, TJ Kajwang, recorded as a dissenting opinion opposed to the creation of the Senate Oversight Fund, saying that their role is catered for by the Parliamentary Service Commission. In his view, members of Parliament are facilitated by the Parliamentary Service Commission to discharge their oversight roles. The report comes after lawmakers came up with the Constitution Amendment Bill of 2022, which sought to provide for the said funds. The bill seeks to increase the allocation of the National Constituency Development Fund, that is NGCDF, to 5% from the current 2.5% by amending the NGCDF Act of 2015. The bill also calls for the establishment of the Senate Oversight Fund that seeks an allocation of 0.001% of all the national government share of revenue as divided in the Division of Revenue Act. The push comes at a time when Parliament is awaiting for the hearing of its appeal case after it filed a petition seeking to quash a High Court decision that declared NGCDF unconstitutional. So there is a pending case, that is an appeal, and now the matter, of course, dealing with the NGCDF is before the, appellate court. It's an appeal that seeks to quash the High Court decision on the whole issue of NGCDF. Now, still on the People Daily, and that is on page 5, House leadership meets to strategize. There is a Nakuru retreat that is expected to yield critical outcomes, including strategies and addressing challenges. Top leadership of the National Assembly will this week retreat to Nakuru for a meeting to address key legislative priorities and strengthen collaboration. The retreat, scheduled to take place from Monday, that is today, through Wednesday, October 30th, is themed Reinvigorating Synergy in Leadership for Accelerated Discharge of the Mandate of the National Assembly. That is builds on last year's September retreat, which was themed Building Synergy in Leadership, Enhancing the Legislative Agenda in the National Assembly. A program released by the Office of the Speaker indicates that the House leadership will convene to address key legislative priorities and strengthen synergy within the Assembly's leadership. And so there is also the issue of whole strategic direction, where according to Wetangula, the retreat is expected to yield critical outcomes, including strategies to address challenges encountered during the third session and to advance plans for reprocessing bills and other legislative priorities. In response to public concerns over energy issues, including high cost and frequent blackouts, Wetangula has invited the Energy Cabinet Secretary, that is under the Principal Secretary for the State Department of Energy, and the CEO of Kenya Power to discuss improvements in the sector and address future needs that could bolster manufacturing. Not sure whether this still, the House still has powers, considering the Adani takeover. However, the courts intervened on that, and there is also some orders that are ineffective. On the induction, supporting the retreat's objective, leader of the majority party in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, said that through orientation, induction, capacity building programs, and leadership forums, the Assembly and its members have been empowered to fulfill their constitutional the constitutional duties effectively. And now, this morning, I'm joined by Dr. Isaac Hassan, a leadership and governance expert. Thank you so much for creating time.
Thank you, Chacha.
As we await Arnold Malba, head of policy and public affairs at the ruling party UDA, and as well Morara Omoke, an advocate of the High Court. We are focusing first of all on an area of matters here. And the House leadership, that is Parliament, will be retreating to Naivasha. And in fact, this is, according to their theme, it's building synergy in leadership. You are a leadership expert. Do you find this important? Will it impact the current leaders we have in the National Assembly that maybe tries to save its face?
Good morning, everybody. Chacha, thank you very much for hosting me. Chacha, I think in Parliament, quite a number of things have happened. Among them, the time that there was critical motion in impeaching the Deputy President. And there are quite a number of things that most of the members of Parliament disagreed on, particularly when the motion they tabled in Senate created a bit of, substandard information in regards to what Parliament has tabled, and the MP who has been leading the motion, or rather sponsored the motion. And that, in the image of the nation, Kenyans looked at Parliament as an institution that does not critically look at what they want to table, and of course justify issues that they need to pull forward. So in critical aspect, most of them got disappointed, and therefore I think it is worth having time to reflect on. And most of the things that they're going to look at, I'm sure very well, is about the business of the House, which critically will look at areas where they have gone wrong in this particular time when they have tabled that motion, and the Senate proved to them that indeed the members of Parliament did not critically look at what they were tabling. The issue is credibility and value for the image of the institution, and what you think is well packaged in terms of responsibility of the parliamentarians. Secondly, of course, there are quite a number of things. People have criticized members of Parliament in regards to issues related to what is priority for the common mwananchi, including issues of Adani, including issues of cost of living. So there are quite a number of things, I think, that members of Parliament need to go and discuss and salvage themselves in terms of what they will need to do in order for them to change their credibility table, or trust that the communities will going to have, or the people of Kenyans, or people who have voted them in, will going to have, or will going to perceive. And then building confidence is one of the other things. So I tend to think it is a crucial moment, but we'll wait to see what will be the outcome of that retreat. And to finalize, there are a number of misunderstandings that has been going on among parliamentarians in regards to issues related to political parties, in regards to issues of decision making, in regards to issues of the House business. And therefore, I tend to think also when they are trying to find a way of meeting, then they want to come up with a certain approach or strategy, not forgetting that common Kenyans have defined parliament as executive. They have defined parliament as not the representative of the people who have taken them to that particular house, but the representative of the executive. So there are quite a number of things which are going up and down. So I tend to think they need to look at a lot of things critically and prove to us that indeed they will get back to their business rather than what they are trying to do and politicking, which is not what we have taken them there for.
And also on set, we are joined by Morara Omoke, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Thank you so much for catching time this morning, Wakili. We are focusing on the House leadership that is meeting to strategize. That is the National Assembly's retreat in Nakuru. That is specifically, actually, yes, in Nakuru, beginning today up to Wednesday, Naivasha to be specific. And, you know, perhaps Kenyans will question, why must such retreats be held outside Nairobi?
I wouldn't fault them. Well, if it's Naivasha, it's not too far from Nairobi. They can go ahead. But what would be more concerning to me is what is the purpose of the meeting? Because I can tell you that the current parliament has been a major failure. I think it's the worst parliament in our history, at least in the recent memory. They do not know the priorities that the people want. When the Gen Zers began their the movement against the government, they were very clear what they want. They want to change the way they are being governed. But what has Parliament done? All they've done is to basically just sweep the issues under the carpet by bringing up the impeachment of our Deputy President and making it a priority, which it was not. So the issue is whether they can really try and focus. Maybe the Speaker can also become more independent. It's very disappointing. The Speaker we have in the National Assembly, indeed, I think he should be impeached.
There are conversations already around that.
If there is one that must be impeached, it has to be the Speaker of the National Assembly. He's totally an embarrassment in our history. It lacks independency and is totally partisan. Is
it because on how he handled the Gachagua case? Or
not just that. I mean, it's from previous, if you look at previous, how he has conducted business in the House, right from the beginning, it's extremely unfortunate that we have a Speaker who is a partisan, who has refused to resign from his political party and just be focused on being a Speaker of the National Assembly and a Speaker of the Republic of Kenya.
Maybe fears of lacking a political party that have caused Gachagua to be removed from office. Maybe if I told Gachagua had a political party, then at least he would have hired a bargaining power.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
So maybe he's trying to just ensure that he's safe, or it violates the Constitution.
But when it comes to certain things, such as the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the third in line of the presidential succession, I think we need someone to be independent, absolutely.
Well, Arnold Malba, who is the head of policy and public affairs, the ruling party UDA, has just joined us this morning. Thank you so much for getting time, Malba.
Thank you.
We're focusing on the National Assembly's retreat in Naivasha. And perhaps, you know, many are just asking, will it even yield any outcome at the end of the day?
Well, it's important because, number one, Parliament is a big team. The Parliament we have is extremely big. With sometimes we used to make jokes about it looking like a high school. It's so huge. So team building is important. A little bit of housekeeping. You realize that there are still members who, 2 years into coming to office, really haven't caught up with the rules of the House. And you know, Parliament is not just the plenary that we see, the whole House. Parliament largely works by way of committees, so it's important to have a little bit of that housekeeping. So far, Parliament has done what you would call something that no other Parliament has actually sat and done in this country. So it will be important that they actually just go back, try to heal up, do a little bit of team building, fix, and just get every machine now and then really needs a little bit of repair and service. So I think this is long overdue, and it's just important that Parliament really retreats, take stock of what they've done and where they really want to go. Also, just remember that...
maybe on the concerns around austerity measures, must such a retreat be held in Naivasha? They already have Parliament that is on recess. They could use the chambers.
It will be important, by the way, once members of parliament are actually within the parliamentary buildings and offices, they're very busy. They can never retreat, and actually, even people are actually pulled out of sessions to address and deal with other issues. But be that as it may, I'm thinking...
So Naivasha is safer for them to focus?
A working retreat is literally something that all offices do. And here, there is something that actually happened that I think we are trying to forget here. 25th June should not be lost on us. I think it's also important that Parliament retreats and asks themselves exactly how did we get there. Also, I think there is the reintroduction of the finance bill coming, and it's also wise that they plan
Finance bill
accordingly.
of 2024?
Yeah.
A section or the whole of it?
We actually have to ensure that it's actually, our budget is actually legislative. So we cannot move fully into having a budget that is actually running without going through that process.
But the budget has already been slashed by the same amount that this finance bill of 2024 would have financed the budget. So
you still have to regularize.
Finance bill of 2024.
You still have to regularize.
Literally.
You still have to regularize.
Funding a budget that is already funded.
No, regularization, like I've just told you, it's legislated. You cannot spend unless it's legislated. And by the way, you cannot just copy-paste because we passed a law 2 years ago. You say we can stick to the same. The provisions in the PFM Act insist that you have to regularize. Even if we are doing the same, you will have to regularize.
Wakili, on the reintroduction of the finance bill of 2024, the withdrawal of that bill meant government reducing its budget. That was done through supplementary one that came shortly after the budget had been passed. With the reintroduction, will it violate the constitution where at least on how to finance a budget and as well the whole budget coming at the same time, the bills coming at the same time before parliament. But now this one, it's a finance bill coming later, in the middle of an ongoing financial year.
I would think that it will depend on the manner in which the bill will be structured, the content. So it's very hard to comment on the constitutionality until we see the actual document.
Maybe Daktari, on that.
I think when we look at it politically, Parliament and the executive are trying to see if they can sneak the full 2024 financial bill. And of course, with some little amendment in terms of things that were very obvious, where the president has clearly said, we will going to remove this one out of the bill. But again, there were a lot inside that bill that Kenyans were not happy with it. It wasn't all about the car taxation, or it wasn't all about issues surrounding the general cost of livelihood. But there are quite a number of things which we already know that has emerged.
Well, allow me to cut you short. We first of all take a short commercial break.
Right.
We'll also be coming back with the whole issues of counting, the counties actually having to wait longer for the new revenue sharing formula that actually came as a result of the national government or the national treasury seeking to slash by 20 billion the amounts that were allocated to counties. That also forms the whole conversation of course, devolution and its state. Arnold Malba has already hinted that Finance Bill 2024 is coming back. We'll be right back with that conversation. Stay tuned.
Mr. DJ
Lucky.
Anguka now.
When it comes to playing the best music videos, we've got you covered.